Hello comic book fans, here's Earl Grey and this is Hellboy. It's a part of my collection from Mignola books, here Baltimore, BPRD, the Hellboy Library Edition and some other stuff. Obviously not complete at all, but already a cornerstone of my comic collection. But I don't want to rush anything, and so today it's just the Library Edition Volume 1. And these libraries are, as everyone and his mama or her mama has told you already, I guess, are the pinnacle of comic trade making. Hardcover, of course, with this cloth on them. This felt surface, the golden imprint, and the drawing from Mignola in the center. Beautifully made books. I guess when you see them, you want to have them, and I guess that's the purpose of good comic book making. And the binding is pretty pretty good as well. So, what's in it? We have Seed of Destruction and Wake the Devil, two stories that started the whole Hellboy myth epic. The first one is written by John Byrne. I mean, Mignola obviously has invented his characters, but he needed help in the beginning with plotting and getting the narration going. So here's for Jack Kirby, H.P. Lovecraft, my lovely wife Christine, and the amazing Elmer Newton. I don't know about the last two, but Jack Kirby and H.P. Lovecraft are obviously important for Mignola because he owes a lot to them, art-wise to Kirby and story-wise to H.P. Lovecraft. Even though he forged something pretty new out of these origins. So, as to the origin of Hellboy, which is told in Seed of Destruction here, very caption box heavy, but pretty short as well. If you are familiar with the myth of Hellboy, who is summoned up to the surface of the earth by this bunch of crazy Nazis and Rasputin, which is this is very fast told, and here we have him. A cute little monster. And that was always what's fascinated me about Hellboy right from the start, that we have this demon of, you couldn't tell otherwise, of evil origin. He's Hellboy, for Christ's sake. Oh, oops, he's Hellboy. And he's a threat to humanity, but he's a very kind and nice guy. And you can see this as a demonstration of a worldview where nobody is bad from the beginning, but can be... education is everything. The way you are brought up, that's the key, how you turn up to be. Maybe you have some stuff in your genetics, but you can overcome it. And that was always the core of this character to me. His fight against his origin, and for the most part, he has succeeded. I don't know about the last part of the series, Hellboy in Hell, which is collected in the library number 7, which will come out this year. Yeah, and I'm curious to see, because I've waited all the time. And please don't tell me how it eventually ends all. Yeah, that's Trevor Brutenholm, of course, the adoptive father of Hellboy, so to speak. Like Hellboy's origin, the origin of his comrades is very quickly told as well, like the origin of Elizabeth Sherman, the girl that can sets herself on fire, and it's told in 2 panels here, even though it's a bit text heavy. Like all the Seed of Destruction is pretty text heavy explanation, caption box heavy as well. And here we have the origin of Ape Sapien in 2 panels. Maybe because Byrne and Mignola wanted to set a ground of the story. This flows not so naturally as some of the later stuff. To contradict myself, here we have some good flowing panels without too many caption boxes. And oh, here, holy crap! Yeah, every good comic has tentacles, and Hellboy is a really tentacly comic. Here's an African myth about a frog. Frogs almost always represent something negative in the mignolaverse. And here's the story. On a day when little water was to be found, man spent a while in thought and realized that he might one day die, never to rise again. Man sent dog to God to ask that he might come back to life again, like the flowering plant after death. Dog went off and followed his nose toward God. He was soon distracted by the smell of soup and followed his hunger toward the source. Leaning close to watch it boil, Dog was content and forgot his mission. Seeing that Dog was lost, Frog took it upon himself to go to God and tell him that man did not want to live again. If man were to be reborn, thought Frog, he would soon muddy the rivers and destroy the birthplaces of frogs. Dog finally arrived to tell God man's message. Leaning low, he crooned man's need for rebirth in the song of his howl. God was touched by the devotion of Dog for man. But God granted the frog's wish because he got there first. Art-wise and how Mignola uses a lot of stark blacks and there's decorative simplifications of forms, how he draws monsters and so on. This is right there, right from the beginning. In comparison, here's the very first drawing of Hellboy, done as a convention sketch in 1991. The series here was plotted, at least the first part, the Seed of Destruction, at the end of 92 and drawn in 93. So there was quite a development from this guy to our Hellboy. This drooling, freakish character has not too much in common with our Hellboy, even though there are already this zone of horns, but he has some extra horns the side, or should that be his ears? I don't know. Yeah. So, but Ape Sapien here looks as we all know him until today. So, and here Kirby crackles all over. No wonder that he has dedicated this to Kirby. For those of you who like their comics to be spiced with Nazis and technically enhanced gorillas and severed heads in jars and so on. Yeah, Hellboy is definitely something for you. There's ancient evil in 7 parts. This is a complete innovation from Mignola, very Kirby-esque, of course. But I hoped it would be something has a relation to a real god of East European origin or something like that, which is obviously not the case. It's really a Mignola invention. So, more tentacles, more Kirby crackles. Let's move on to story number 2, Wake the Devil. This was written and drawn by Mike Mignola, or drawn and written by Mike Mignola, colored by James Sinclair, and here we have a key name which will become more important in the future, Dave Stewart, and does here just the color separations. We have an introduction by Alan Moore, who talks a bit too much around the bush about the grand and global scheme or the comic book history, and not so much about Hellboy. But an introduction by Alan Moore, you can't criticize that, actually. So, Wake the Devil is a vampire story about this guy here, Giruescu, or somehow like that, and some revived Nazis. And yeah, I guess that's the basic premise. The Nazis, especially this woman here, Ilsa Hauptstein, want to revive. The Nazis want to revive other Nazis, and especially this old vampire Girescu, and they want to summon up Ragnarok, the end of days, when the 7 evils I already spoken about come to being, come to life, and everything else must die, or something like that. Good versus the bad, and good is represented by Hellboy and his BPRD colleagues, of course. Here's some kind of Madame Tussauds in a little shop in New York. So, this story flows very naturally, much more naturally than the first one, and feels like the first really real Hellboy story in that way. Here's the reviving Frankenstein style going on, big time, in this kind of factory in somewhere in Norway, if I remember it correctly. And Hellboy has some tech problems here. Yeah. New and improved, my ass. Click, 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 click. And then it functions in a way. So. We have the first appearance of Baba Yaga, the old witch from the East European folk tales. And this character I've always liked, with her chicken leg house and everything. She's so absurd, so bizarre, that she's really fitting into this story. There are 2 bonus stories as well. In one, Hellboy has to fight this giant dog, which turns out to be Anubis, the ancient Egypt god of mummification. But is exploding pretty quickly. So the story is comes to an abrupt end, and the other story is same kind of throwaway little piece of work here. Gorilla and silvered head in a jar and Nazi swastika and that chained lady and so on. And a bit of clobbering ensues, and of course Hellboy stands as the victor among a lot of Kirby crackers. So we have come to the art section here. This is a pretty early rendition of Hellboy over there, and the BPRD team. Ape Sapien looks pretty familiar. This is Liz Sherman, and this is supposedly Johann, and this is another guy. And here we have Hellboy. His right arm is far too small here, but it's from '93 and things are still developing. In all the library editions we have a wealth of drawings and bonus matter in the back. These are drawings and sketches of Hellboy's father and maybe Hellboy's sister here over there. Hellboy's father doesn't have a part in the first Hellboy stories, but Mignola already fooled around how he could look like. And some other drawings, especially from this froggy guys here. At first he thought the headquarters of BPRD could be under some kind of water tower, old water tower in the earth, Kirby style, but he changed his opinion and made it this Frank Lloyd Wright style building here, very prominent on the surface, not hidden in the earth. And wonderful Mignola gnomes and creatures and East European guys with blood on their mouth, because all East European are vampires, you know. A silly creature, lock and load, or two silly creatures, one can stuff a bullet into the other, and that one becomes in this way a cannon. An early rendition of a Lobster Johnson character, some other stuff, very Kirby here. I mean, I'm not a Kirby expert at all, but this cries a lot of Kirby to me. These are beautiful drawings where he just fools around a bit and sees what comes to existence on the paper. Really great art. And this shows a bit of his dealing with northern mythology, especially of the filtered through Jack Kirby again, because Pluto is not a part of northern mythology like he states in the corner, but for him Pluto was always somehow involved in northern mythology, because Kirby used him in this context. Just some lines and you got this old man Giurescu, the father of the vampire, who is the most important figure in the second story of the book. So, that's it. with this book. And for now, thanks for listening and watching. Goodbye.